The drums of the Bloodmoon ceremony pounded like a heartbeat Ariella could not silence. Each strike echoed through the crescent-shaped hall, bouncing against marble pillars and crashing back into her chest. Wolves gathered in the hundreds, a sea of glowing eyes, whispering and watching. And all of them were watching her. The last unmated she-wolf of the Crescent Fawn pack. The girl with no status, no rank, no claw to her name. The girl everyone expected to kneel tonight, or break. The moon goddess had never felt so far away. Ariella's throat tightened as she stood beneath the Bloodmoon flame, its red glow flickering across her skin. She tugged at the thin ceremonial dress they forced her to wear, hating how exposed she felt under the eyes of wolves who would kill to own her. Her father was somewhere in the audience, powerless to stop what was coming. Her siblings hid behind elders who pretended to protect them. Her whole family depended on her choice tonight. But every path before her was a trap. Every male approaching her was a disaster. Every option handed to her by the elders was a threat wrapped neatly in tradition. It reminded her of the ancient philosophical riddle she'd once secretly read in one of the discarded human books her father kept. A runaway trolley heading toward 5 people. You can pull the lever to kill one instead. Either way, someone dies because of you. That was her life now. 5 wolves wanted to claim her. Rejecting any of them could cause a war. Accepting any of them would destroy her family. There was no right thing to do. There was only the least terrible outcome. She scanned the crowd, her heart pounding like a trapped drum. Dane, the alpha son, leaned casually against a pillar as if already bored of waiting to claim her. His smirk oozed entitlement. He carried power like a blade and cruelty like a second skin. "I'll tame you," he had whispered that morning. "You'll look beautiful branded with my mark." Her stomach twisted. 2 other males, sons of neighboring pack alphas, stood at the ready, confident and hungry. An alliance with her could merge territories. Controlling her could shift power. Owning her could start a dynasty. The elders wanted a political marriage. Her father wanted her safe. Her siblings wanted her home. But none of them understood the real danger. If she let any of these wolves touch her, she would never be free again. The drums fell silent. An elder stepped forward and raised his staff. "The Bloodmoon flame dwindles," he proclaimed. "By ancient law, Ariella of Crescent Fawn must choose her mate before it dies." Ariella's breath caught. It was time. Dane pushed off the pillar and strode confidently toward the center. He didn't ask permission. He didn't wait for her choice. He assumed it. Like everyone else. "He has no right," her younger sister whispered from the crowd, trembling. But rights meant nothing tonight. Power did. Ariella felt herself trapped like a lever in someone else's moral test. Whichever direction she turned, someone suffered. Even herself. She took a trembling step backward, shaking her head. No. The word was small, barely audible, but it silenced the hall. Dane froze, shock flashing across his face before it twisted into fury. "No," he repeated, laughter bubbling darkly. "Ariella, sweetheart. This isn't about what you want." The alpha made no move to stop his son. The elders looked away. The wolves whispered. "She's rejecting him? She's insane. She'll doom her family." Dane reached for her wrist. And Ariella's pulse exploded. Every instinct in her screamed run. Every part of her soul screamed choose differently. She couldn't pick Dane. She couldn't pick the political wolves. She couldn't pick any of the powerful. She needed another option. Another path. Another lever she could pull that didn't end in bloodshed or chains. Her gaze darted wildly across the hall. And then she saw him. A shadow at the very back of the ceremony. Barely visible in the darkness behind a pillar. A man or wolf, wrapped in torn clothing, hunched, shaking. Matted hair falling over his face. Skin bruised and dirt-streaked. Clothes hanging from a starving frame. A beggar. Rumors swirled around him. That he was feral. Mute. Cursed. Rejected by every pack he wandered into. He wasn't a threat. He had no alliances. No pack would fight for him. No wolf would kill over him. Choosing him would not start a war. Choosing him might stop one. He was the only lever that didn't crush someone else. Her heart raced. He's nothing, the elder once said. Barely a wolf. A nobody to the pack. But to her, in this moment, he was salvation. Dane reached for her again. Ariella ran. The crowd gasped as she sprinted down the staircase, her ceremonial dress whipping behind her. She didn't think, didn't breathe, didn't hesitate. She ran straight for the beggar as wolves shouted, elder voices cracked, and Dane roared her name behind her. When she reached him, the beggar's head lifted slightly, just enough for their eyes to meet. Through the curtain of tangled hair, his eyes were unreadable, dim, distant, wounded. But he didn't flinch, didn't step back, didn't warn her away. He didn't even seem surprised. Ariella whispered, trembling, "I'm sorry." And then she grabbed his face with both hands and kissed him. Hard, desperate, final. The world exploded. A shock of silver fire blasted through them, the mate bond snapping violently into existence. Wolves screamed as the energy wave burst outward, knocking several off their feet. The ceremonial flame roared high, flaring blood-red and white in patterns never seen. The elders stared in horror. The alpha's face turned ashen. Dane looked ready to kill. Ariella pulled back, gasping, her heart pounding as the bond seared itself in place. Then, the beggar's body stopped trembling. He straightened. Slowly, deliberately, as if he had been waiting decades for his spine to lift again. The grime on his skin seemed to fade under the moonlight. The shadows around him deepened, swirling like ancient power awakening. A low hum filled the air, energy, raw and terrifying. Then, he lifted his head fully, and the breath left Ariella's lungs. His eyes. Not brown, not blue, not any color a normal wolf possessed, but gold. Liquid gold. Pure, molten, ancient gold. The color that no pack had seen since the fall of the royal bloodline. The color only one race of wolf ever possessed. Lycans. The hall didn't gasp. It choked. Every wolf froze as if turned to stone. Several warriors dropped to their knees involuntarily, trembling under the dominance that poured from him like a rising storm. The elders clutched their robes. The alpha stumbled. Even Dane, cruel, arrogant Dane, took a terrified step back. Ariella stared at the man she had kissed. The man she thought was helpless, unwanted, insignificant. Instead, she had just kissed. No, she had just claimed. A king. The last of the Lycan bloodline. The most powerful wolf alive. The beggar opened his mouth, and his voice was nothing like the weak, broken creature she thought she saved. It cracked like thunder. "I accept her." The words shook the hall. Wolves bowed. Unwilling, unconscious, instinctive. Ariella stood frozen, her heart slamming hard enough to hurt. What had she done? What destiny had she triggered? The beggar, no. The king turned slowly to her, gold eyes burning into her soul. And his voice, low and ancient, wrapped around her like a vow. "You chose me when no wolf dared. But you do not know what you have chosen." Ariella swallowed, her pulse echoing through every bone. She didn't. She had no idea. But now there was no turning back. The mate bond connected her to a power the world believed dead. The forgotten king of the Lycans. And he was hers, whether she wanted him or not. The moment the beggar, her mate, stood at full height, the Bloodmoon hall changed. It wasn't dramatic at first. No crack of lightning, no shattering stone, just a quiet, terrifying shift. A shift in the air, a shift in the power, a shift inside every wolf present. Ariella felt it first. The instinctive tremor that rolled through her bones, like some ancient part of her DNA recognized something older and stronger than anything her world had ever taught her to fear. Then the tremor spread. Wolves inhaled sharply. Shivers raced through bodies. Elders clutched their robes. Even the torches along the wall flickered violently, as if bowing to something unseen. The man she kissed. The beggar. The nobody. The one they whispered was cursed. Stood taller than any alpha in the room. His shoulders broad. his spine straight and regal, his presence swallowing the hall like a rising tide. And his eyes. His eyes. Not dirt brown like she thought beneath the grime. Not tired or empty. Gold. Ancient, unnatural, royal gold. The color of stories. Of warnings whispered at night. Of a bloodline meant to have vanished from the earth. Ariella's heart slammed in her chest. What are you? She whispered without meaning to say it aloud. He didn't answer. Not yet. He didn't even look at her. He looked past her, through the crowd, with a gaze that felt like a blade pressed to a secret. A blade the pack didn't want to acknowledge. A blade the pack had tried to bury. The alpha of Crescent Fawn, Rowan, stumbled backward, unable to mask the fear flickering across his face. Dane, his son, stood rigid, jaw clenched, eyes wide. The arrogance that coated him like oil had vanished, replaced with something Ariella never thought she'd see. Confusion. Fear. Recognition. Impossible, Dane muttered under his breath. That bloodline is gone, it's gone. But the beggar, her mate, finally spoke. Look at me. His voice wasn't loud, but it was felt. Wolves flinched as if struck by a physical blow. Ariella swayed, but the mate bond pulsed like a barrier around her, cushioning her from the force that dropped every other wolf within 10 feet to their knees. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't commanding. He was simply existing. And his existence demanded obedience. Ariella stared, terrified and mesmerized. He was no beggar. No outcast. No weakling. He was something else entirely. Something no wolf had seen in generations. The whispers erupted. His eyes. They can't be real. No wolf has gold eyes, only Lycans. But the Lycans are dead. Not all of them. The beggar's gaze swept across the hall, lingering briefly on the alpha and the elders. A slow, deliberate recognition. One that made Rowan's face drain of blood. Why you? Rowan stuttered. You can't be. The beggar tilted his head, almost curious. You remember my blood. His tone held neither warmth nor hatred, only truth. You should. You helped spill enough of it. Gasps shattered through the hall. Ariella felt herself step backward on instinct. Not because she feared him, but because she feared what he was about to do. Dane stepped forward aggressively, trying to reclaim dominance. Who are you? He demanded, though his voice wavered. What trick are you playing? Slowly, like a curtain being drawn aside, the beggar's aura unfurled. It didn't explode. It didn't crackle with energy. But it filled the space, thick and monumental, pressing down on every wolf except her. Wolves fell to their knees. Warriors gritted their teeth. Elders shook violently. Ariella felt the pressure too, crushing and suffocating. But the mate bond held. Barely. The beggar finally spoke his name. My name, he said, voice deepening like thunder rolling through a mountain, is Kaelin Draven Bloodborn. The hall went silent. Utterly. Completely. Horrifically silent. Bloodborn. A name whispered in fear. A name tied to the greatest massacre in wolf history. A name believed extinct. No one moved. No one breathed. Ariella's fingers trembled. She had heard the stories when she was young. Stories of the Lycan King, Draven Bloodborn, and his children. Stories of war. Stories of betrayal. Stories that ended with the Bloodborn line wiped out. Yet one stood before her. Alive. Breathing. Made it to her. The youngest elder collapsed onto both knees, clutching her beads. Moon goddess, forgive us. Kaelin didn't react. He simply continued speaking, his tone calm in a way that terrified the wolves more than if he'd shouted. I did not die, he said. I was hunted. Betrayed. Forced into shadows. His gaze slid to the alpha. And your pack, Kaelin continued, played its part. Rowan flinched. Dane's jaw locked, eyes wide with a realization he didn't dare voice. And Ariella. Ariella felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. She had not only chosen a stranger to escape Dane. She had chosen the enemy of her own pack. The enemy they thought they killed. Ariella's breathing grew shallow, panic tightening her chest. I didn't know, she whispered, trembling. I swear I didn't know. Kaelin's gaze softened. just a fraction. But it was enough. You chose survival, he said quietly. You chose the only option left to you. But I didn't choose you knowingly, she whispered back, guilt stabbing her. And yet, he answered softly. You chose me. The hall shivered at the intimacy in his tone. Ariella flinched, her mind spinning. What happens now? She whispered. His expression turned unreadable. That, he said, depends on the pack that tried to erase my blood from history. A ripple of terror cut through the crowd. Kaelin stepped forward. Not toward Ariella, but toward Rowan. The alpha tried to stand tall, but his knees shook. What do you want? Rowan croaked. Kaelin's gold eyes glowed like molten metal. Truth, Kaelin answered. And justice. Dane lunged forward, claws half extended. You won't touch my father. Kaelin didn't even look at him. With a flicker of power, Dane flew backward as if struck by an invisible wall, crashing into a pillar with a groan. Ariella gasped. Kaelin hadn't moved. Hadn't snarled. Hadn't even shown anger. His power was simply natural. Effortless. Dane struggled to stand, but his legs buckled. Kaelin finally turned back to Ariella. His voice softened again, a contradiction to the power thrumming through him. You are not at fault, he said. You did what wolves do under tyranny. You survived. Her throat closed. Are you angry at me? She whispered, voice breaking. His gold eyes locked onto hers. Angry. He stepped closer, dominance radiating off him in waves, but there was no menace in it. Only gravity. No, he said. I am not angry. Relief flooded her. But, he added, his voice lowering, you have bound yourself to a king who is betrayed by this pack. Ariella's heart stuttered. What will you do? She asked. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face so gently she nearly flinched. What I must, he murmured. What fate demands. What justice requires. Ariella stared at him, breath shaky. I don't want anyone to die because of me, she whispered. Kaelin's expression deepened, pained, almost. You speak like someone who has always been forced to choose between suffering, he said quietly. Between the lesser evil and the greater threat. Her breath hitched. Yes, that was exactly her life. His gaze softened further. But I am not another impossible choice, he said. I am not another wolf who will take everything from you. He stepped back, his power retracting like a tide. I am Kaelin Bloodborn, he said, voice calm and unwavering. And I protect what is mine. Ariella trembled. What am I to you? She whispered. His gold eyes locked onto her soul. My mate. Warmth exploded through her chest. Fear. Hope. Destiny. All tangled into one. But before she could respond, a warrior from the back shouted, voice cracking with terror. He's not supposed to exist. If the Lycan King lives the prophecy. Rowan snapped silence. But it was too late. Kaelin turned slowly. What prophecy? Ariella asked softly. He looked at her, something ancient flickering in his gaze. A prophecy, Kaelin said. That begins with a forgotten king being claimed by a forgotten girl. Ariella's knees weakened. A forgotten girl. Her. The hall erupted into screams. Wolves shouting. Warriors drawing weapons. Elders chanting prayers to the moon. Dane snarling, clawing at Kaelin despite the invisible barrier holding him back. Ariella tried to step away, but the mate bond snapped, pulling her closer instead. Kaelin reached for her hand. Do not fear me, he said quietly. Fear the truth. What truth? She whispered. He leaned close. His breath brushed her ear. The truth your pack tried to bury along with my kingdom. Ariella's blood froze. Because in that moment, she understood. Choosing the beggar didn't save her. It changed the fate of the entire wolf world. And she was now bound by destiny, by magic, by a kiss, to the most powerful and dangerous wolf alive. Her mate. Her king. Kaelin Bloodborn. This chapter contains the consent twist, the emotional conflict, the power tension, and the secrets Kaelin has carried for decades. For several long, suffocating seconds, the world didn't move. Didn't breathe. Didn't dare. Kaelin Draven Bloodborn, the Ghost King, the vanished heir, The man Ariella kissed only to survive stood in the center of the Bloodmoon Hall like an unfolding storm. Wolves knelt under the weight of his aura. Elders clutched their robes, whispering frantic prayers. Alpha Rowan tried to stand but trembled violently, trapped between horror and denial. And Ariella. Ariella remained standing only because the mate bond wrapped around her like a fragile shield. Thin, flickering, but present. Her ears rang from the chaos. Her heart hammered an uneven rhythm. Every instinct screamed to run. But every piece of her soul whispered, "Face him. Understand him. Before the world burns for him." Kaelin's gold eyes flicked toward her. Ariella straightened, breath tight. He didn't look angry. Didn't look triumphant. He looked disappointed. Not in her, but in everything else. "Ariella," Elder Maros croaked, desperation cracking his voice. "You did not know who he was. You may still renounce your choice." Kaelin's gaze cut to the elder like a blade. "Renounce?" he asked softly. The word sounded dangerous. An elder gulped. Another flinched. The pack collectively held its breath. "I will not allow the bond to be treated as a bargaining tool," Kaelin said. His voice resonated. Not loud, but absolute, like the world hadn't heard authority in centuries and was starved for it. Ariella felt every wolf quake. Even the air seemed to tighten around them. Dane staggered to his feet, hatred burning in his eyes. "You manipulated her," he spat. "You used the chaos to force her into a claim." Kaelin's aura surged. Dane dropped instantly, gasping, clawing at his throat as if something invisible pressed him down. Ariella gasped. "Stop," she breathed, stepping forward. The pressure vanished instantly. Dane collapsed, choking for air. Kaelin turned to her, his expression unreadable. "You hold my leash already?" he asked, a strange, conflicted softness in his voice. "Interesting." Ariella's face flushed. "I didn't mean to. I know." His voice lowered. "The bond protects you. Even from me." His gaze held hers longer than it should have, and something inside Ariella tightened. Something dangerous. Something warm. Something she tried desperately to suppress. "Not now. Not here." She forced her attention to the elders. "What happens now?" she asked, voice trembling. Her words rippled through the hall. Rowan finally found his voice. This cannot stand," the alpha stammered. "No wolf can take a mate without consent. The ceremony requires agreement, mutual agreement." A chorus of wolves murmured in fear. They wanted the claim undone. Not because of Ariella. Because Kaelin frightened them more than death. Ariella's stomach twisted. She had forced him into this, hadn't she? The thought lodged in her like a shard of ice. She turned to Kaelin. "For the bond to be real," she whispered, "you have to accept it." "You didn't have to, you didn't want to." "I wanted nothing," Kaelin said simply. "I expected nothing." His gold eyes darkened. "And no one in this hall ever once gave me the dignity of a choice." His words fell like stones. A deep, heavy, painful truth lived inside them. Ariella felt a crack inside her chest. "But did you accept because of the bond?" she asked quietly. "Or because you felt you had no choice?" The entire hall stilled. This was it. The mottled consent dilemma in its rawest form. The question the pack feared. The question Ariella had to ask. Kaelin stepped closer. His height swallowed her. His presence curled around her like a shadow of the moon. "I accepted," he said slowly, softly, "because you made a choice no one else ever did." Ariella frowned. "What choice?" "To see me." Her heart stalled. Ariella shook her head. "I didn't know who you were." "I didn't say you saw a king," Kaelin murmured. "I said, you saw me." The room shook with the weight of his confession. Ariella took a small step back, overwhelmed. "But her voice cracked. "I didn't choose you because I saw you. I chose you because I had no one else. I didn't mean to drag you into this." For the first time, Kaelin looked uneasy. Not from anger. From something almost like pain. "I know," he whispered. And his next words were hardly a breath. "You chose me to save yourself and risked me instead." Ariella's chest collapsed inward. The words were a mirror, showing her every part of herself she didn't want to acknowledge. Yes, she whispered. I did. Kalen's throat worked. A single flicker of something raw passed over his expression. And yet, he said, voice low, you apologized before you kissed me. Ariella froze. He remembered that? And that, Kalen murmured, makes your choice more honest than any wolf in this hall has ever made. Her breath shattered. I should have asked you, she whispered. You were drowning, Kalen replied. And drowning wolves do not ask permission to breathe. The hall erupted in murmurs, wolves shocked at his words. Ariella heard none of it. Her eyes stayed locked on him. Are you angry? She breathed. He looked at her for a long time. No, he said simply. Ariella sagged, relief overwhelming her. But, Kalen added softly, I am not without questions of my own. Her eyes darted up. What questions? He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. Why did you run to me? Her lips parted. I told you. I had no one else. That is not the whole truth. Her pulse hammered. He leaned down, face inches from hers. Your eyes found mine, he murmured. Before you even chose to run. Ariella's breath hitched. He was right. She had been staring at him for nearly a minute before running. But why? He whispered. Ariella swallowed hard. I don't know. Try. I just felt something. A pull. Kalen's eyes flared gold for a moment. A pull, he repeated softly. The mate bond hummed between them, warm and charged. Whatever pulled you to me, Kalen murmured, did not want you to die tonight. Ariella's pulse thundered. She whispered, would they have forced me? He looked over her shoulder at the elders. They already did. Ariella stiffened. The elders bristled in silent panic. Rowan stepped forward, trying to reclaim control. You will release her, he commanded Kalen. You will break the bond or... Kalen laughed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't mocking. It was soft. And deeply, terrifyingly amused. I do not take orders, he said. Least of all from wolves who killed my blood. Rowan paled. Dane snarled, stepping forward again despite his injuries. You think you can rule here? You're one wolf. We have hundreds. Kalen cocked his head. Do you? Ariella felt the air shift. Kalen released a mere fraction of his aura. Dane's legs buckled instantly. Half the warriors collapsed. 3 elders fainted. Ariella gasped. But again, the mate bond shielded her from the force. Kalen watched her reaction with quiet interest. You withstand me, he murmured. Even untrained. Her throat closed. What does that mean? That you were not chosen by accident. Her knees weakened. Kalen stepped closer, lowering his voice again. I do not resent the bond, he said. I do not reject the claim. Ariella's chest tightened. But understand this, Ariella, he said softly. You have tied yourself to a king who has lived in shadows, hunted like prey, betrayed by every wolf he trusted. She trembled. And, because of your choice, the world will know I live. Ariella whispered. What happens now? His gold eyes darkened. Now, he said, every truth this pack buried will be dug up. Her heart raced. And every wolf who played a role in my family's massacre. His voice dropped into a quiet, lethal growl. Will answer to me. Ariella's breath vanished. But, he added softly, cupping her cheek with surprising gentleness, I will not harm the innocent. And I will not let you drown again. Her eyes stung. Why? She whispered. He didn't smile. He didn't soften. He simply said the words like they were undeniable truth. Because you're my mate. And I protect what is mine. Ariella's heart collapsed inward, then burst outward in a rush of conflicting emotion. Fear, hope, relief, longing, dread, curiosity. She felt everything at once. But most terrifyingly, she believed him. And that was the most dangerous truth of all. Because whether she meant to or not, Ariella had awakened a king. And a king never kneels. Not even for fate. Not even for the past. Not even for revenge. But for her, he might. The Alpha's office reeked of old leather and older lies. Ariella stood behind Kalen, watching her father's face drain of color as the man she'd marked her mate, stared him down with eyes that had seen the inside of hell, and walked back out. "You're mistaken," Alpha Rowan said, but his voice cracked on the second word. "The royal family died 15 years ago. Everyone knows." "Everyone knows what they were told," Kaelin interrupted softly. Too softly. Ariella's wolf whined in warning. She'd heard that tone before. Right before he'd torn apart 3 rogues without breaking a sweat. Her father must have heard it too, because he took a step back, his hand instinctively reaching for the ceremonial blade on his desk. "I don't know who you think you are, but—" Kaelin moved. Not physically. He didn't take a step, didn't raise a hand, didn't even shift his weight. But the air moved. Ariella felt it roll off him like a wave, raw, undiluted power that made her knees buckle and her wolf flatten in submission. It wasn't just dominance. It was ancient. Primal. The kind of authority that predated pacts and politics, that spoke directly to the animal brain and said, "Kneel or die." Her father hit the floor so hard his knees cracked against the wood. The blade clattered from his grip. "Don't," Kaelin said quietly, "insult us both with more lies." Ariella stared. She'd seen Alpha's face off before, watched her father cow challengers with nothing but a look. But this wasn't a challenge. This was a reckoning. "Where were you?" Kaelin asked, each word precise as a scalpel. "The night my family burned." Silence. Her father's mouth opened. Closed. His eyes darted toward the door, but Ariella stood between him and escape, and some sick part of her wanted to hear his answer. We, Rowan's voice came out strangled. "We didn't have a choice." The words hit Ariella like a physical blow. "We. Not, I don't know what you're talking about. Not, you're insane. We. There's always a choice," Kaelin said. The pressure in the room intensified, and Ariella watched her father, the man who'd raised her, trained her, shaped her into his perfect successor, crumble like wet paper. "They promised us territory," Rowan gasped out. "Security. A seat at the table when they divided up the royal lands. We were nothing before that. Just another pack struggling to survive. So you killed children for real estate." It wasn't a question. Ariella's stomach turned. She thought of the bedtime stories her mother used to tell, tales of the great packs united, of honor and loyalty and the sacred bonds between wolves. All lies. Built on the ashes of murdered pups and a burning palace. "We didn't kill anyone." Her father's voice rose, desperate. We helped them get past the wards. Provided entry points. It was supposed to be clean. Political. They said the king was a tyrant, that he was hoarding power while smaller packs starved. "And you believe them?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Ariella wanted to scream. Wanted to shift and tear something apart. But she couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but stand there while her entire world rewrote itself in real time. A soft noise from the hallway made her turn. 3 elders stood in the doorway, Counselor Thorne, Elder Maris, and Old Gregor, who'd taught her to track when she was 6. Their faces were pale, their eyes fixed on Kaelin with something between horror and recognition. "It's him," Maris whispered. "Gods above, it's actually him." "We should have known," Thorne said hoarsely. "The aura. The eyes. How did we not?" "Because we wanted to forget," Gregor finished. His gaze shifted to Ariella, and something in his expression made her want to vomit. "Does she know? Did you tell her what we did?" "What you did," Ariella heard herself say. Her voice sounded foreign. Hollow. "What exactly did you do?" The elders exchanged glances. "They promised us power," Maris said finally. "Said if we helped eliminate the royal bloodline, we'd be elevated. Given authority over 3 territories instead of 1. We were desperate. The pack was dying, our borders constantly under siege." "So you sold your souls," Kaelin said flatly. Gregor flinched. "We were told there would be no survivors. That it would be swift. Painless." How thoughtful. The sarcasm cut like glass. Ariella's mind reeled. All this time, every lesson about honor and pack loyalty and doing what was necessary for survival, it had all been in service of covering up genocide. Her father. The elders. People she'd trusted. And she'd marked their victim. Bonded herself to the man whose family her pack had helped destroy. Oh gods, she breathed. Kalen glanced at her, and for just a second, his expression softened. Then he turned back to the cowering wolves in front of him, and his face became stone. I am not here, he said quietly, to destroy the innocent. Relief flickered across her father's face. I am here to destroy the guilty. The relief died. Kalen straightened, and Ariella watched shadows gather around him like living things, not darkness, but the absence of light, as if reality itself bent away from him. You took everything from me, he said. My family, my childhood, my name. You left me to die in the ruins of my own home, choking on the smoke of my mother's funeral pyre. His voice never rose above conversational, but each word landed with the weight of a death sentence. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to gather everyone who participated in that attack. Everyone who knew. Everyone who benefited. He smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing Ariella had ever seen. And then we're going to have a very long conversation about justice. The guest room felt like a cage. Ariella paced the length of it for the 100th time, her bare feet silent on the polished wood. Outside, dawn was breaking over the pack grounds, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. She hadn't slept. Couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her father on his knees, heard the elders confessing to genocide, felt the weight of the bond mark burning against her throat. A bond mark that connected her to a king who wanted vengeance. A king whose family her pack had murdered. A knock at the door made her jump. It's me, Kalen's voice came through the wood, low and careful. May I come in? She almost laughed. As if she could refuse him anything. As if the bond thrumming between them didn't already give him access to every corner of her traitorous heart. It's your house, she said instead. The door opened. He stood there holding a tray, dressed simply in dark pants and a shirt that did nothing to hide the lean muscle underneath. His hair was damp, like he'd just bathed, and for a moment he looked less like an ancient king and more like a man trying very hard not to frighten a wounded animal. I brought breakfast, he said. You didn't eat last night. I'm not hungry. You need to eat. He stepped inside, setting the tray on the small table by the window. Steam rose from a bowl of porridge and the smell of honey and cinnamon filled the room. The bond takes energy to maintain. If you don't talk to me about the bond, she snapped. Don't stand there and pretend this is normal. That we're normal. He went still. I never said we were normal. Then what are we? The question tore out of her, raw and desperate. You're planning to execute my father. My elders. Probably half my pack. And I'm supposed to, what? Stand by your side? Warm your bed? Play the dutiful mate while you dismantle everything I've ever known. Silence stretched between them. No, Kalen said finally. You're not supposed to do any of those things. She blinked. What? Ancient law states that a newly mated pair must complete their first unity night within 3 days of bonding, or the connection destabilizes. He met her eyes, his expression unreadable. We have 2 days left. Her heart lurched. And if we don't? The bond begins to fracture. It's painful for both parties. Eventually fatal, if left too long. He paused. But I won't force you, Ariella. I won't even ask. I am a king, not a monster. The words hit her like cold water. You could, she whispered. The bond already makes me want. She cut herself off, heat flooding her face. You could compel me. Use the connection to. Yes, he agreed quietly. I could. And if I did, I'd be no better than the men who destroyed my family. He turned toward the door. Eat. Rest. I'll have someone bring you clean clothes. We'll figure out the rest later. Wait. He paused, hand on the doorframe. Why did you bring me here? She asked. After everything. After learning what my pact did to you. Why not just let the bond kill me? Kalen looked back at her, and something in his eyes made her chest ache. Because you didn't know, he said. And because when those rogues came for you, you fought like you had something to live for. I recognize that fight. I've been fighting it for 15 years. Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him. The next 2 days passed in a strange, suspended reality. Kalen kept his distance, but made his presence known in small ways. Meals appeared at regular intervals, always warm, always something she liked even though she'd never told him her preferences. He'd somehow figured out she hated red meat rare, that she couldn't stand black coffee, that she had a weakness for fresh bread with butter and honey. On the second day, she found him in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, kneading dough with practiced efficiency. "You cook," she said, startled. He glanced up. "Someone had to. I wasn't exactly living in palaces after the attack." She leaned against the doorframe, watching him work. His hands were scarred. Old burns, claw marks, the rough evidence of a hard life. "Where did you go?" "After. Everywhere. Nowhere." He shaped the dough into loaves, his movements precise. "Spent the first few years just surviving. Hiding in abandoned buildings. Stealing food when I could. Running when I couldn't. You were a child. I was the last of the royal line. That made me a target, not a child." He slid the loaves into the oven, wiping his hands on a towel. "There were bounties. Hunters. Packs that wanted to prove their loyalty to the new order by bringing in my head." Ariella's stomach twisted. "How long?" 8 years before I was strong enough to stop running. Another 5 before I was strong enough to start hunting them back." He met her eyes. "I know what it's like to be expendable, Ariella. To have the entire world decide you're not worth saving." She thought about the cabin boy and the ethics case, the one thrown overboard to save the others. How the transcript had talked about treating people as means to an end rather than ends in themselves. "That's what they did to you," she said softly. "Decided one child's life was worth trading for political power." "Yes. And now you want them to pay." "Yes." No hesitation. No apology. She moved closer, drawn by something she couldn't name. "What about me? What do you want from me?" Kaelin turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. "I don't know," he admitted. "When you kissed me in that clearing, I thought you were just saving yourself. Using the bond law to escape the rogues. But then you marked me, and I felt." He stopped, jaw tight. "I felt something I haven't felt in 15 years. "What?" "Hope." The word came out rough, like it hurt him to say it. "When you kissed me, you didn't save yourself, Ariella. You saved me." Her heart hammered against her ribs. She reached up without thinking, fingers brushing the edge of his jaw where a bruise was fading. He'd taken hits protecting her. Bled for her. Offered her mercy when he could have demanded everything. "I didn't know," she whispered. "About what they did. About you. If I had, would you have marked me anyway?" She thought about it. Really thought about it. About the man standing in front of her who cooked her breakfast and refused to force her hand and carried 15 years of justified rage without letting it consume him completely. "Yes," she said. "I think I would have." His hand came up to cover hers, warm and solid and real. And Ariella felt herself falling for the king she never meant to choose. Dane came for her at moonrise. Ariella was crossing the courtyard when he materialized from the shadows, his face twisted with something beyond rage. Beyond reason. "You marked him," Dane snarled, backing her against the stone wall. "A beggar. A nobody. You threw away our future for some scarred rogue who is standing right behind you," Kaelin said quietly. Dane spun, and his face went white. Then red. Then something ugly and desperate. "I don't care who you claim to be," he spat. "She was mine first. Mine by right. By tradition. You're nothing but..." He lunged. Ariella screamed a warning, but Kaelin was already moving. Not away. Into it. The shift happened mid-motion. She'd seen wolves shift before. Watched her father transform hundreds of times. But this was different. This wasn't a man becoming a wolf. This was something ancient and primal tearing free from flesh that could barely contain it. Kaelin's Lycan form towered over them both. Easily 9 feet of raw power and silver-dark fur that seemed to drink the moonlight. His eyes blazed gold, and when he opened his jaws, the sound that came out was less growl and more force of nature. Dane hit the ground, shifting desperately, but his wolf looked like a pup next to Kaelin's true form. One massive clawed hand pinned Dane to the stone. The other drew back, ready to tear, to rend, to end this permanently. "Kaelin, don't." Ariella didn't think. She ran forward, pressing her hand to his furred chest, feeling the thunderous heartbeat beneath. He froze. Slowly, so slowly, his head turned toward her. Those golden eyes focused, recognition bleeding through the rage. "Please," she whispered. "Don't become what they made you." For a moment, nothing moved. Then Kaelin's claws retracted. His breathing steadied. He released Dane, who scrambled backward, bleeding and whimpering. "Go," Kaelin's voice rumbled, deeper in this form but still comprehensible. "And be grateful she has more mercy than I do." Dane fled. The shift back took longer. When Kaelin finally stood before her again in human form, he was shaking, covered in sweat, his scars livid against pale skin. "I nearly killed him," he said hoarsely. "If you hadn't." "But I did." She took his hand, ignoring the blood. "Come on." She led him to the small chapel at the edge of the grounds, where moonlight streamed through stained glass and the air smelled of old incense. They sank onto a wooden pew together, both trembling for different reasons. "The moon goddess hid you in that form," Ariella said after a long silence. "Didn't she? Made you look scarred and broken so no one would recognize what you were." "Yes." Kaelin stared at his hands. "After the attack, when I was dying, I felt her presence. Felt her change me. Make me unrecognizable. It saved my life, but cost me everything else." "She protected you." "She abandoned me," he corrected. "Let me suffer for 15 years. Watched while I starved and bled," and he stopped, jaw tight. "What kind of goddess does that?" "The kind who plays a longer game than we understand." Ariella turned toward him. "Or maybe she's asking us the questions we're too afraid to ask ourselves. Such as whether survival is ever an excuse to harm another." She thought of her father, of the elders. "My pack destroyed yours to survive. Were they wrong? Or just desperate?" Kaelin was quiet for a long moment. "Desperation doesn't erase culpability, but it complicates it. And us." The words came out smaller than she intended. "Is our bond valid? I marked you to escape rogues. You accepted because why? Loneliness? Strategy? Was any of it real?" He looked at her then, really looked, and what she saw in his eyes made her heart stutter. "I've spent 15 years believing I was alone," he said. "That the moon had cursed me, marked me for suffering. And then you kissed me, and for the first time since I watched my family burn, I felt like maybe I wasn't meant to die after all." That's not an answer. The answer is yes. It started in desperation. But what it's becoming, he reached up, fingers brushing the mark on her throat. "This is real. Everything else we can figure out." Outside, voices rose. Angry. Frightened. The pack was gathering, and Ariella could hear them splitting, some calling for Kaelin's death, others already murmuring about bowing to a returned king. "They're going to make us choose," she said. "Between vengeance and mercy. Between the old order and something new." "No." Kaelin stood, pulling her with him. "They're going to make me choose. You already chose when you marked me in that clearing. When you stopped me from killing Dane. When you looked at a scarred rogue and saw something worth saving." He cupped her face in both hands, and the tenderness in the gesture nearly undid her. "You chose me, Ariella. Now let me choose you." The bond flared between them, not demanding, not desperate, but certain. Sure. Like the moon pulling the tide. And for the first time since that night in the clearing, Ariella stopped fighting it. She surrendered. Not to dominance or destiny or ancient law, but to the simple, terrifying truth that she was falling in love with the broken king who'd learned to cook her breakfast, who refused to force her hand, who carried the weight of genocide but wouldn't let it crush his capacity for mercy. "Okay," she whispered against his lips. "Okay." Their true union began not with fire, but with choice. And outside, under the watching moon, the pack prepared for war. The Bloodmoon hung heavy and crimson over the sacred grove. Ariella stood at the center of the ancient stone circle, wearing nothing but moonlight and the mark on her throat that pulsed in time with her racing heart. Around them, the pack gathered in silence, witnesses to a ritual that hadn't been performed in generations. Kaelin faced her, bare-chested, his scars silver in the lunar glow. Behind him, Elder Maris held the ceremonial blade, her hands shaking as she prepared to officiate a bonding she'd never thought to see. Under the blood moon, Maris began, her voice carrying across the grove. We gather to witness the completion of a mate bond. What the moon has joined, let no wolf tear asunder. Ariella's breath came shallow. This was it. The point of no return. Kaelin's eyes found hers, and she saw the question there. The choice he was still offering her, even now, even here. She stepped forward. The ritual was older than words. Kaelin drew the blade across his palm, then hers, and when their bloodied hands clasped, the bond exploded between them like lightning finding ground. Power surged outward in a visible wave, gold and silver light that washed over the assembled pack, carrying with it the undeniable truth of what they were. What he was. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Wolves dropped to their knees, overwhelmed by the sheer force of ancient royal blood recognizing its birthright. And then the moon itself seemed to split open. Light poured down, coalescing into a form that was woman and wolf, and something beyond both. The moon goddess materialized in spirit form, her eyes ancient and knowing as she gazed upon the bonded pair. You question my choices, her voice resonated through every chest, every bone. You wonder why I hit him. Why I brought them together in desperation rather than ceremony. The pack was frozen, transfixed. Ariella chose him, the goddess continued, her hand gesturing toward where they stood, still joined, because destiny chose her first. Not as punishment. Not as accident. But because she alone had the strength to stand beside a king who has known the worst of us and still chooses mercy. Her gaze swept the crowd, and wolves who moments ago had called for Kaelin's death now trembled under that cosmic scrutiny. He has returned. The true king. And she is your queen. The goddess's form began to fade. What you do with this gift will determine whether you deserve it. Then she was gone, leaving only moonlight and stunned silence. Kaelin's hand tightened on Ariella's. She felt the completion of the bond settle into place, not a chain, but a tether. An anchor in a storm that was just beginning. I am Kaelin Thorne, he said, his voice carrying with preternatural clarity. Son of King Aldrich. Survivor of the royal massacre. And I stand before you not to destroy, but to reclaim what was stolen. He lifted their joined hands, blood still dripping between their fingers. I reclaim my throne, he declared, with my mate beside me. The first wolf to bow was young, a scout named Kira who Ariella had trained herself. Then another. And another. Like dominoes falling, the pack began to kneel. But not all. Ariella saw them, the ones who remained standing. Dane, nursing his wounds. Counselor Thorne, his face twisted with calculation. A dozen others scattered through the crowd, their expressions ranging from fear to fury to cold, calculated hatred. The pack had split, just as Kaelin had predicted. And she stood at the fault line. Those who wish to challenge, Kaelin said, his tone almost gentle, you have until dawn. After that, we move forward. Together or not at all. The assembly dispersed slowly, wolves murmuring, casting glances back at the king and queen who'd materialized from legend and desperation. Ariella leaned into Kaelin's warmth as they stood alone in the clearing. They're going to fight this. Some of them will never accept. I know. He pressed his lips to her temple. But we don't need all of them. Just enough. Enough for what? To build something better than what came before. His arms came around her, solid and sure. To prove that survival doesn't have to mean sacrifice. That power doesn't have to mean cruelty. She turned in his embrace, seeing the man who'd cooked her breakfast, who'd stopped himself from killing Dane, who'd offered her choice when he could have demanded obedience. We're going to have to fight for this, she said. For us. For whatever this becomes. Yes. He kissed her, slow and deep and certain. But for the first time in 15 years, I have something worth fighting for. They left the grove hand in hand, king and queen, walking toward a future neither had chosen, but both were beginning to want. Neither noticed the hooded figure lingering at the edge of the tree line. The assassin watched them go, then lifted a small communication crystal to their lips. The voice that emerged was cold, precise, touched with an accent from the northern territories. Confirmed. The royal bloodline lives. A pause. Bonded to the silver pyre. The girl doesn't know what she's awakened. Static crackled through the crystal. Understood, the assassin continued. If the king has risen, the hunt begins again. The Covenant will want him alive this time. For questioning. The figure melted into shadow, leaving only disturbed leaves and the faint scent of wolfsbane on the wind. Above, the blood moon began to set, painting the world in shades of crimson and warning. And in the pack house, wrapped in each other's arms, Kaelin and Ariella slept unaware that their war had only just begun.